President Biden held a meeting with congressional leaders on the debt ceiling Tuesday. Democrats want an increase without any conditions attached. Republicans are pushing for spending cuts in addition to raising the debt ceiling. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said time is running out.
Everybody in this meeting reiterated the positions they were at. I didn't see any new movement. The president said the staff should get back together, but I was very clear with the president. We have now just 2 weeks to go.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said even after the meeting, there are still large differences on the debt ceiling.
We explicitly asked Speaker McCarthy, would he take default off the table? He refused. President Biden said he would. Leader Jeffries said he would. Of course, I said I would. But he wouldn't take it off the table.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now from the North Lawn. Weijia, what's your takeaway there after this meeting?
Well, Major, this is exactly what we expected, frankly, given what both sides were saying going into the meeting. And now the top line coming out of it, you just heard from Speaker Kevin McCarthy, is that there wasn't much movement from either side, that basically they are exactly where they were going in. However, he said the progress that was made was that there was actually a meeting, because he reiterated, he probably said more than a dozen times that for 97 days, he claims that he was asking the president for a meeting to talk about this, to try to reach some sort of a compromise, and that never happened. He claims that the president refused to take a meeting with him. So a lot of this, of course, as you know, is a he said. Right now, the White House is not saying anything, and the president has not issued a statement or made any public remarks. So all we know is what McCarthy is saying. So in addition to saying that there was no movement, he also said that he asked President Biden numerous times whether there was any room for spending cuts, because as you know, the House has passed a bill that attaches lots of spending cuts to raising the debt ceiling. And he said that the White House would not budge on that, and that the president did not give any examples of where there might be. He also said that the leaders, all five of them, the president and the big four there, would meet again on Friday. So that is more progress. But in terms of anything substantive, Major, that will actually raise the debt ceiling in a way that the White House and McCarthy agreed to, no, we do not have that today after about a 1 hour meeting with the president and these four congressional leaders.
Senator Schumer said at the microphones that there might be conversations as soon as tomorrow morning about the budget and appropriations process. Yeah. That would be a separate track, completely divorced from the debt ceiling conversation. Do you get any sense that Republicans will be interested in or showing up at those meetings?
No. I think Speaker McCarthy made very clear in his remarks here after the meeting that he is unwilling to decouple these two things, that his position is solidified. He believes that he has done his job because the bill that the House passed includes a raise of the debt ceiling. He says the onus is now on Democrats to come to the table and work through not only those negotiations, but to realize that they have to stay together. Of course, this is something that Democrats and the president says is not going to happen. He says if a bill like that were to come to his desk, let's say that Congress were to agree on this, that what the Republicans put forth, he said that he would veto it. So I don't think there's any room for negotiating there. But again, it's really hard to see how they're going to solve this in just a couple weeks, whenever the bottom line here is that neither side is willing to give any after today.
Hard to see indeed. Weijia Jiang joining us from the North Lawn of the White House. Thank you so very much. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now. Scott, what say you from the Capitol Hill perspective?
Everybody's returning here from a meeting talking about how they didn't have any progress in the meeting. Isn't this falling into the normal rhythm of a congressional standoff, where the only takeaway of the only sign of progress is the promise of more meetings, which Speaker Kevin McCarthy told us it'll likely happen Friday. Another sit down, potentially some staff discussions in between. We heard from Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell after the meeting at the White House, and he made this statement that was equal parts ambiguous, but also confident when he said that we've never defaulted before and we will not default in the future. And I just spoke with Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner, who told me he associates himself with Senator McConnell's statements that we just will not default. The outlook is so bleak, the risk is so severe, they won't let it happen. But after this summit meeting confab at the White House, nobody has an idea what the next step forward is towards getting that unique and necessary bipartisan agreement.
Scott, I'm really glad you raised what Senate Minority Leader McConnell said, because at the microphones, Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer both interpreted that as meaning, well, Mitch McConnell has taken default off the table. Only Kevin McCarthy has it on the table. I'm not exactly sure that's what McConnell would say he meant by that, as you said, intentional ambiguity. But did you detect any distance now between where McConnell is and where McCarthy is for the next couple of weeks?
Senator McConnell has had many opportunities to distance himself from the House Republican plan over the past couple of weeks and has seized on none of them, nor do his fellow Republicans in the Senate believe he's doing so now. At this point, Senator McConnell says this is for Speaker McCarthy and the president to work out, and that the Senate takes a back seat. And it's always noteworthy when a Senate leader says the Senate takes a back seat. All of this echoes 2011, Major. We were there when Senator McConnell and then Vice President Biden were the ones who did intervene and avert a debt ceiling disaster and a possible default. Those roles for the Senator McConnell and for other senators don't seem clear at this moment, and that's the sense we're getting post-meeting here at the Capitol.
Scott, there was breaking news this afternoon about the civil verdict in Manhattan against former President Trump. Any reaction on the Hill worth noting?
Yes, there are Republicans who have made some statements in the past couple of hours that are worth underscoring after hearing about this civil trial verdict. Senator John Cornyn of Texas told CBS News in so many words he doesn't think Donald Trump can get elected, that he can't get elected with just his base, and he is not growing his vote total or his prospective vote total. Then John Thune, the #2 Senate Republican from South Dakota, told CBS News this is starting to add up. The investigations, this trial, and that voters will have to decide whether they can deal with all the drama. It really is an equivocation that we haven't heard Senate Republicans or other Republicans make in the past few weeks, ever since that Trump campaign has started to gain steam in the polls. We'll mark this as interesting and noteworthy, at least for today.
Interesting and noteworthy, indeed. Scott MacFarlane, thank you. And we will see you tomorrow when you anchor America Decides.
See you then.